welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the living room that belied the chill of the late autumn morning. I moved methodically, dusting and rearranging, enjoying the solitude that came with a day off from work. My wife, Isabella, was at her weekly pottery class, and I had the house to myself. As I shifted the desk slightly to sweep behind it, a small piece of crumpled paper caught my eye. It had rolled into a tight ball and settled in a dusty corner. Curiosity piqued, I straightened up and smoothed the paper out on the desk. Isabella had a habit of jotting down thoughts and poems on scraps of paper, often discarding them like seeds that never took root. This, I assumed, was just another of her abandoned muses. But as I read, a cold shiver trickled down my spine. The words on the page weren't just any words, they were a confession, a declaration of forbidden love, beautifully composed yet devastating in their meaning. To him, the bearer of my heart's secret seal, under moon's watch, these truths I reveal. Your touch, a whisper, the promise of dawn, in shadows we dance, till night is withdrawn. The poem continued, each stanza a dagger deeper into my heart. It wasn't just anyone's touch she revered, nor was it the thrill of a clandestine love with a stranger. It was my father she spoke of, her father-in-law. Disbelief turned quickly to anger. How long had this been going on? Under our very roof, in the quiet moments I trusted were innocent. I felt the foundation of my marriage crumble under the weight of this betrayal. Rage coiled tightly within me, seeking an outlet, demanding retribution. I heard the front door open and close. Isabella was home. My heart pounded as I heard her footsteps approach. She found me there, standing with the poem in hand, my expression unreadable. "Alex, what's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing in concern as she noticed the paper. "How long, Isabella?" My voice was low, controlled, but inside, I was a tempest. She glanced at the paper and then back at me, her face draining of color. "Alex, How long have you been with him?" I interrupted, the words tasting bitter. "It's not what you think," she started, her voice trembling, but I wasn't in the mood for excuses. "You wrote it all here, in verse no less." I thrust the paper at her. "With my own father." Isabella reached out, her hands shaking. "Please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." I snapped, stepping back. "You betrayed me, with my own father." Her eyes filled with tears, and she seemed to shrink in front of me. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "A mistake repeated in the dark," I retorted, the words sharp and unforgiving. "I'm sorry, truly, I am," she pleaded, her voice breaking. But the damage was done. The trust we built over the years shattered in an instant. I needed to act, to salvage what dignity was left in the wake of their deceit. "I want a divorce," I said coldly, the decision crystallizing with every throb of my heart. "And you will leave this house." Isabella sobbed, collapsing into a chair, but I felt nothing but the cold resolve to see this through. As I walked away, leaving her to her grief, a plan began to form. I would ensure that this betrayal cost her everything, just as it had cost me my peace. Revenge would be my final act of love. The morning after confronting Isabella felt surreal, as if the world had tilted on its axis. The air in our home, once warm and inviting, now hung heavy with silence and betrayal. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a strong cup of coffee, when my phone vibrated. It was a text from my father. "Can we talk? I think there are things we need to discuss." The message ignited a fresh wave of anger. After a moment's hesitation, I typed back, "Meet me at the park in 30 minutes. If we were to talk, it wouldn't be within the walls that they had tainted." The park was quiet, the usual morning joggers absent, perhaps due to the chill in the air. My father was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the pond. As I approached, he looked up, his expression a mix of remorse and resolve. Alex, Save it, I cut him off sharply, standing before him, my arms crossed. How could you? He sighed deeply, his hands trembling slightly. It was never meant to hurt you. It started off as an affair with your son's wife. I interjected, my voice rising. What could possibly justify that? He shook his head, struggling for words. I'm sorry, Alex. Truly, I am. It was a terrible mistake. A mistake? No, a mistake is something small, something forgivable, I snapped back. This was a choice. Both of you chose this. He nodded solemnly, unable to meet my gaze. What are you going to do? I'm divorcing Isabella, I stated flatly. And I want you out of my life. I can't even look at you without feeling this betrayal. My father flinched as if struck. I understand. I'll do whatever you think is right. No, I said, the plan forming clearer now in my mind. You'll do exactly as I say if you want any chance of redemption. He looked up, hopeful yet wary. Anything. First, you will transfer your shares of the family business to me. Consider it a severance of our ties, both familial and financial. His eyes widened, but he nodded slowly. Okay, what else? You will move out of the city. I don't want to run into you, not in a store, not in the street. You need to disappear from my life completely. He swallowed hard, the weight of his actions finally dawning on him. And Isabella? I'll handle that, I said coldly. Just do as I've asked. We stood in silence, the gap between us wider than the expanse of the park. Finally, he stood, offering a hand, which I did not take. I really am sorry, Alex. Sorry doesn't change anything, I replied as he walked away, a broken man. Returning home, I found Isabella packing her belongings. Her presence was a stark reminder of the destruction left in the wake of their actions. Where will you go? I asked, not sure why I cared. My sister's, she answered quietly, avoiding my gaze. She's agreed to help me get back on my feet. Good. I watched her for a moment. You'll receive the divorce papers by the end of the week. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Alex, I never wanted to hurt you. I hope one day you can forgive me. I can't, I said, my voice void of emotion. What you did is unforgivable. As she left with her bags, the finality of our parting struck me. I was free from their deceit, but at the cost of my family, my trust, and a part of my soul. Now, it was time to rebuild, to forge a path forward devoid of the shadows they had cast over my life. The revenge was bitter, and it was complete. In the weeks that followed, the dust began to settle, leaving behind a stark landscape of loneliness and regret. The once familiar routine of daily life transformed into a series of mechanical motions, each day blending into the next with numbing sameness. Yet, the deep sense of satisfaction I expected from my revenge was conspicuously absent. Instead, there was only emptiness, a hollow victory that mocked me from the shadows of my dismantled life. One afternoon, as I sorted through the remnants of shared belongings, a knock at the door jarred me from my thoughts. Standing on my doorstep was a man in his late 40s, his face etched with lines of concern. Mr. Alex Mercer? He asked, his voice tinged with hesitation. Yes, that's me. Can I help you? I replied, puzzled. My name is Detective Larson. I'm here regarding your father, Mr. Robert Mercer. May I come in? A chill ran down my spine as I stepped aside to let him enter. Is everything all right? What's this about? Once inside, Detective Larson took a deep breath before speaking. I'm afraid I have some unsettling news. Your father was found deceased in his apartment this morning. We believe it might be a suicide. The room seemed to spin as I grasped the back of a chair for support. Suicide? But, why? Are you sure? We found a note, and preliminary evidence supports the theory. However, we are still investigating all possibilities. I came here to see if you might have any insights into why he might have done this. Guilt surged through me like a tidal wave. Had my actions driven him to despair? We had a falling out, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. May I ask about the nature of this disagreement? Larson inquired, pulling out a small notebook. It was personal, very painful. I'd rather not get into details. Is that really necessary? I felt defensive, the weight of my decisions bearing down on me. It could help us understand his state of mind, Larson pressed gently. After a moment's hesitation, I recounted the affair and the demands I had placed on my father, leaving out nothing. Larson listened intently, his expression unreadable. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Mercer. It's clear this was a difficult situation. If you think of anything else that might help us, please contact me. He handed me his card. After Larson left, I sat alone in the silent house, the magnitude of recent events finally sinking in. My quest for revenge, meant to bring closure, had spiraled beyond my control, culminating in irreversible tragedy. Days turned into weeks, and a profound sadness took root within me. I began questioning the very essence of my actions. Had my desire for retribution been worth the cost? These thoughts haunted me, a constant echo of the past that refused to be silenced. One evening, while walking aimlessly through the city, I found myself outside a small, nondescript cafe. On a whim, I entered, seeking a brief respite from my torment. Inside, I noticed a support group gathered in a corner, their faces marked by various shades of grief and recovery. Drawn by a mysterious pull, I approached them. Excuse me, what is this group? I asked a woman who appeared to be leading the meeting. We're a support group for those dealing with the loss of family members and the complexities that often follow. You're welcome to join us if you feel it might help, she offered with a kind smile. Without fully understanding why, I nodded and took a seat among strangers, each grappling with their own demons. As they shared their stories of pain, forgiveness, and healing, a faint glimmer of hope began to stir within me. Perhaps here, in the company of those who truly understood loss and regret, I might find a way to forgive myself and start anew. The road to redemption was long and uncertain, but as I listened and began to share my own story, the heavy chains of revenge slowly started to loosen, offering a chance for redemption not through vengeance, but through understanding and reconciliation. Months had passed since the death of my father and the tumultuous upheaval of my personal life. The support group had become a haven where I could unravel my feelings of guilt and anger. Yet, a part of me remained hollow, consumed by an unquenchable thirst for a final, decisive closure. One rainy evening, as the support group session ended, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The message was cryptic but unmistakable: there's more to the story. Meet me at the old Greenwood Pier at midnight. Driven by a mix of curiosity and a residual desire for revenge, I decided to go. The pier was deserted, the only sounds the creaking of the old wood and the gentle lapping of water against the posts. A figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette against the dim moonlight. Alex, the voice was unmistakably Isabella's. Thank you for coming. I needed you to hear the truth from me. Isabella, I said, my voice cold, what truth? That wasn't enough before. She stepped closer, her face pale, her eyes reflecting a turmoil as deep as the ocean before us. It was never an affair, not really. Your father and we were planning a surprise for your birthday. He had the idea to write a series of poems from me to him, which he would bind into a book for you, a story of our love, with him as a character in it, to show how much we both cared. I stared at her, stunned, the pieces clicking together in a painful alignment. A story? But why didn't you just tell me? We wanted it to be a surprise. The poems you found were drafts. We never thought. Her words trailed off as the weight of the misunderstanding bore down on us both. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Had my quest for revenge been based on a fiction, a tragic misinterpretation? And my father? My voice barely rose above a whisper. He couldn't bear the guilt after you cut him off, thinking he betrayed you in the worst way imaginable. Regret surged within me, a torrent that threatened to sweep away the remnants of my rage. But underneath, a darker current stirred. The betrayal was not of infidelity, but of deception, however well-intentioned. You both lied, I said slowly, each word dripping with the remnants of my shattered trust. You concocted stories, played roles, all behind my back. The deceit, it's unforgivable, even now. Isabella reached out, her hand trembling. Alex, I'm so sorry. Can we? No, I cut her off, stepping back. This ends here. For good. Turning away, I left her standing alone, the sound of her pleading drowned out by the crashing of the waves. I walked away from the pier, from Isabella, from the twisted remains of what my life had been. In the days that followed, I took ruthless action. Using my connections, I ensured that Isabella's artistic ventures found no ground in our community. I spread the truth about the poems and the lies, watching as her reputation unraveled, leaving her isolated, a pariah in the circles she once thrived in. As for myself, I sold the house, the site of so many lies, and moved away from the city. I changed my phone number, my email, every tie that could bind me to the past I discarded. In a new city, under a new sky, I began again. The betrayal, the lies, the tragic end of my father, these were chapters of a book I closed firmly behind me. The pain lingered, a scar upon my heart, but with each passing day, it grew fainter, a reminder of lessons bitterly learned. In the end, the most profound revenge came not through acts of malice but through the absolute severance of all bonds. Isabella and my past life became mere echoes, distant memories that no longer held any sway over my future. In the solitude of my new beginning, I found a stark, resolute peace.